Hey friends, it's me Toho, and welcome back to another Legion Tower Defense 2 video. In this video, I show you how I became the best tier 1 player in all of Legion. Bone Warrior Edition. If you haven't seen this series, you might want to go to the playlist and check out the previous ones. And I'll have that linked in the description. In them, I explain how top games work, and break down each wave, and our decision making. If you don't want to go watch it, I'll quickly explain it here. If you don't care, or already know, please skip ahead to the time that I've put up here, or look at the chapters. The top games are based off of the unit that you open with. It goes off how much gold is spent. So if I put down 7 looters, which is 70 gold, and 1 Nikomata, which is 60 gold, the game will count it as a looter game. Next is getting a higher power score by wave 10 than the person currently with the top game. This does fluctuate a bit depending on the player's rank. If I, a 2500 player, have a lower power score by 10 than the gold player that holds the current record, I can still get the top game. And finally, you have to win the game on top of the power score. Accomplish all this, and you make it a top game yourself. Alright, let's get into the game. I'm with my friend Shivers, who is giga washed, but that's okay, I still like him. I did the same plan as last time. Go Fiesta and grab a friend, so I don't int a random person on the ladder. In this game I got Bones, and if you know me, I am the self-proclaimed best Bones only player in the entire game. So you could say that I had high hopes for this one. I figured both Bones and Harpies are incredibly good early and cheap enough to allow for a good push. However, I made an oopsie-daisy. I'd been doing this challenge so long as Fiesta that I completely forgot that I actually was Castle. Oh well. Yeah, so wave 1 wasn't great, but I am Castle and there's investment in the game, so maybe I can bring it back. Wave 2, I knew I was getting the snail, but I wasn't about to stay at 4 workers, so I had to believe in the power of Bones, Harpies, and position. This wave is Impact Arcane, so there really is a chance, even though I'm 50 under and getting a snail. And oh my goodness, I actually held. In no world did I think this would ever happen. Not only that, but I actually covered my allies league too. Maybe it is a pro hosted ed. Well, maybe not. In Legion, a lot of the time, you want to push that worker after a big hold, but it's not always the smartest decision. The wave was very long, meaning the send I was going to get would likely be pretty big. I mean, just look how much Mythium I had. You've got to understand when you're strong and when you're not, and Harpies and Bones are incredible on wave 2, so they can hold a bit under, but they're not the greatest on 3, meaning that if I don't overbuild a little bit, I'm going to leak very heavily. Just like on wave 2, Harpies and Bones are incredibly strong on wave 4, so if I had held this wave, I could have pushed so many workers. Unfortunately, I did not listen to my own advice, I only added the steed, and had another big leak. Thankfully, my ally covered me this time, and we actually got some king damage on them because of our big sends. Wave 4 is here, and because of another long wave and another big leak for me, I had to stay at 6 workers. Sure that, hey, I'm 6 workers on 3, look at me, is a good feeling, but if you get punished for it, then it can turn into, hey, I'm still 6 workers on wave 5, look at me. This trap gets even the best players in the game, so be careful out there, friends. I would probably be around 8 workers, and pretty safe right now, if I had just stayed 5 workers on wave 3. The resend on 4 comes, and because I overbuilt with Flower, I was going to full hold this and be a bit stronger for wave 5, so I finally get to push again. Wave 5 is here, and I needed some single target damage a bit better than the Harpies, and all I could afford was the Fire Archer, so I went with it. Normally, I would want it a bit further up, so it tanks the boss a bit and gets in a couple of extra attacks before my tanks start taking damage, but I didn't have enough money to fix it, so we gotta believe. I only got sent a snail, and am not the greatest on 6 or 7 to a big enough send, so I stayed at 8 workers and went for a bit of an overbuild. It's now wave 6, and I built the Sky Queen and some extra bones on the split for that little bit of extra tankiness. With this steed, the Sky Queen will put out some good damage even though it's a Pierce unit, versus a fortified wave. And because of its natural defense typing, it can actually even slow the last 2 Rockos by itself, if it comes down to it. I get a Hermit send, and because I stayed as overbuilt as I could after 5, I just full hold and am now free to push those workers. Unfortunately, I underestimated the amount that I could get resent here. They came back with another Hermit and a Lizard, and that one extra steed that I added wasn't going to cut it, so I do leak a little bit. I knew that send was definitely after income, so the person sending into me shouldn't be able to send all that much on wave 8, so I pushed a little bit and just got my second Sky Queen. I guessed correctly and just got a Fiend, which I full held and got away with my bit of a greedy push. For wave 9, I only pushed 1 worker because I really wanted the Death Cap, which is a very good unit for wave 9, a good tank for 10 and 11, and an incredible unit again on wave 12. so if I got it out now, I can maybe push a bit more than I normally would have for these future waves. I'm glad I did because I definitely got a bit of ascend here on wave 9. Just like wave 6, the Harpies are still pretty good here, and with their natural defense typing, can tank a bit more than some of the other DPS units. I just full hold and I'm free to push a bunch of workers again. It's wave 10 and I try to do my best to throw this game. I should have seen that my ally was a bit weak here, and because of a long wave, we were pretty susceptible to a reset. I greeted heavily and put down my Poda because, oh, if they don't send here, I can just get into Zarya in 11 and full hold. Well, they did send, and we both ended up leaking a bit and taking some king damage, giving them a way back into the game. Wave 11, I still just build the Zarya because my teammate was getting bullied, and again, wasn't the greatest here. It's a good thing I did, as he got a very big resend and leaked a little bit. I cover a lot of it, and because our king was almost fully upgraded, we didn't take too much damage. Also, let's not talk about my Zarya positioning. I re-rolled into it and didn't have much of a choice where to put it, so we don't talk about it and how much it tanks, or doesn't tank. Wave 12 is here, and I'm starting to get up there on the power score. Nice. I went with some steeds as I felt wave 14 was my next weakest wave, plus they buffed the damage of my Poda and my Sky Queens. I got incomed again, and full health of course. I didn't push any workers though, because I knew we were going to starve for a bit and try to find the best wave to send, which was looking like 15 or 16. Wave 13, nobody sends and everybody holds, and because I hadn't pushed, I said we could skip, and I would hold and cover some of my allies' leak for wave 14. Wave 14, and they did come with a pretty big send. Thankfully, I do hold, greatly reducing the damage our king would take and the amount of gold they get from the leak. I pushed hard, and we decided to go for 50. Because of my hold last wave, I was on top of the power score and feeling very confident. All we had to do is get some good king damage here, and it was probably a good game. I went with a Siege Ram because of the 2 Vulcans, and a Needler to hopefully clear out the Slime Siren spam and the rest of his Swift units. I also did a last minute 4 Eyes, but this was probably not great as the Slime Sirens will just delay it forever. And yep, it's unfortunate, but my guy did not leak. It's time to start planning for our next send. I pushed a bit of workers because I knew I had to leak them whenever we send next, and I also needed to get top power score, so I actually income a bit here. Thankfully, they do the same, and it's time for me to giga push workers. I already have a couple of Sky Queens and some Golems and a ton of income, which should let me be able to build enough units to hold, even though I've pushed really hard. Wave 17, they income again, so I pushed again. This is another trap that some players fall into. Sure, you want to get income to try and hold the next big send, but by doing it like this, it gives your opponents extra money from the send itself and less pressure on them, allowing for an even higher worker push. Basically, when you do it like this, you're actually hurting yourself because that 800 send that you would have received turns into more like a 1000 send. But it's wave 18 and we decided to send. My guy was on top and had already shown Vulcans with Golems, so I didn't want to go wave 19. Plus, I was 70 workers and hadn't sent in a while. We could have got 19 because Steel has most of their money and impact, but I figured this would be okay. I went with the Shaman because that's just what you do on 18. A Witch for the spam, a Siege Ram for the 3 Vulcans, and a Needler to hopefully take out the Skeletons, Sovereigns, and Slimes a bit faster. Unfortunately, yet again, I did not get my guy that great. As it turns out, I am very noob in descending into him. It's okay though, I still got him a little bit, and my ally leaked his guy a lot, so we got some good king damage and a lot of gold. Wave 19, I built a bunch of Poda in his areas as they were my best option for killing wave 20, and do good max HP damage for 21+. I don't really remember who called for the wave 20 send, but I haven't really leaked my guy this game, and his teammate has Doomsdays, which are possibly the best unit in the game for wave 20. Thankfully, they sent 2, and everyone throws together. Nice, bailed out a little bit. I was giga ahead at this point, and loved my role for Evertime. I had the Flowers for AoE, Harpies and Poda, with a ton of Steeds for single target damage, and Hardened Golems for tanks. Everyone skips 21, and it was time for the game-ending send, as surely the game would end on wave 22. Funny how all these games are going to overtime. It's definitely much easier to edit and write a script for, and I'm super happy about it. I get a big 2000 cent and eventually end up holding, and surprise surprise, I did not leak my guy again. Fortunately, his ally leaked enough and I weakened him just enough that he couldn't cover everything, and we ended up taking the win. Oh my goodness, another stressful wave 22 game, but I ended on top power score and got the top game. Alright friends, that's it from me, and I hope you enjoyed it, or maybe even learned a thing or two, and I'll see you next week for another top game with tier 1s.